It's Pyram King, and I'm super excited to share with you another guide to Curse of Strahd. This one is Tsolenka Pass. We've got a bunch of interesting things in here. We got the rock, the stone bridge, some traps where we're using monks, active tile triggers, even an Avalanche minigame in here. So much to show you. Really excited about it. Before we get started, a huge shout out to the Patreon supporters. It is your support, Patreon members, that allow me to put together these detailed video guides with all the timestamps, the detailed PDF guides for you guys to enjoy and download, the token packs, the sound files, the voice acting, and of course the Foundry Adventure module. We're going to be looking at one of those right here. Now, if you are a Patreon supporter at the PDF level, your names are in that PDF guide for everyone to see as a special thank you and an acknowledgement. And if you support me at the Foundry level, your names are actually in the Foundry module itself. Look at all these amazing Patreon supporters at the Foundry level here. This is just amazing. All of you making this happen. And all of you guys joining us on our Discord channel, sharing your stories, ideas, art, and content. Some of you guys have even shared your voice acting we're sharing in some of these videos. It's awesome that we have such an active community. Really appreciate it. If you're interested in supporting me on this epic journey, you can by becoming a Patreon member down below. There's a link, patreon.com/Pyram King. Now, 2 special acknowledgments for this guide. Of course, you probably already know, DM Andy. We have been on this epic journey together. He's making these gorgeous battle maps. He's very gracious to allow us to include WebP versions of them here in our Foundry guides and in our guides. We're going to be looking at them here today. But if you want the 4K version, the 8K version, the special effects, or the different versions he makes a lot of different versions, head over to DM Andy's Patreon page. There's a link in the description down below. And of course, Blair and the Scene Packer module. None of this would exist without Blair and his Scene Packer module to make all this stuff available in Foundry. He's an amazing developer, amazing guy, really making this all worthwhile. If you're interested in making your own Foundry adventure, go over to Blair's Patreon page, check him out in the different support levels. Both Blair and DM Andy are on our Discord channel answering questions, helping people out. Come by and say hello. In fact, come by and say thank you to Blair and DM Andy because they're making this all happen. Now, let's jump into this. I'm really excited to bring this one to you. Now, as you know, before I jump into any guide, I like to give a little context to you as the Dungeon Master to understand what's going on in this area and give you a little bit of flavor and everything. We're going to talk about this one, and this guide is quite a bit different than the traditional ones. Players in this particular series of maps and guides are going to be facing environmental effects. A lot of dexterity checks, strength checks. They're going to have to figure things out. They're going to have to do some creative problem solving. It's going to be a completely different from what they're normally experienced. And this is fun because as they're heading up to Tsolenka, to the Amber Temple, they've gone through the ascent of Tsolenka. They've visited the ruins of Bargao. They've been to the tower and met Lamilla here at the gates. Now they're getting into some environmental hazards, and it's going to be difficult. Trust me, it's going to be difficult getting to the Amber Temple. Now let's talk a little bit about the history here first so you understand what is this Tsolenka Pass that everybody's talking about. Now, Tsolenka Pass is a gorge. It was been cut into the Mount Gakis millions of years ago by the Luna River. That's the river at the bottom of the gorge. Now, there is a difficult and treacherous trail that's over here on the map. It starts just to the left of the bridge. This old path is a sheer path right down to Luna River. Very dangerous. It was used a long time ago by the Asari when they were traveling from the villages of Bargao down to Luna River and then down to the village of Berez. It hasn't been used in centuries except for Munster, the Mongol caretaker at the guard tower in the last video here at Tsolenka. He secretly uses this path to head down to Berez and into Vallaki. Now the Asari stonemasons had built this bridge here, the first bridge, about 1,000 years ago when they were building the Amber Temple. So this bridge was originally built about 1,000 years ago, crossing this gorge. The gorge spans about 90 feet, and it's about a 500-foot drop down to the river. Now, when the Great War came to the valley, and that Great War lasted for 25 years, it was the Turk forces. It was about 400 years ago, right at the time when Strahd came. The Argynvost commissioned the Asari stonemasons to build the gates of Tsolenka and the tower there where we saw in the last guide, as well as refortify this bridge, putting guardhouses both on the east and the west sides of this bridge. And the gates of Tsolenka, as well as the stone bridge, never fell to enemy forces during the Great War. And this is a testament not only to the Asari construction, the stonemason constructions, but the steadfast will of the Asari women, the shield maidens that guarded the gates, along with Argynvost, Knights of Order of the Silver Dragon. So that gives you some context and some history here. We'll be going through this a little bit more closely here. Really excited about this. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about environmental conditions in here that the players are going to have to deal with, right? So this is more about environmental conditions. We've got a couple of encounters and a little mini game in here. I'll show you all of that, even some traps. So let's review those environmental conditions and get you comfortable with those first. Now, first one is blizzard. Blizzards are going to be strong winds, snow. This imposes disadvantage on range weapon attacks, wisdom perception that involves hearing and sight. So it's going to be hard to see. It's going to be hard to hear. That wind's going to be blowing. It's going to be blizzard. Disadvantage on those range weapon attacks and wisdom perception. Blizzards also extinguish torches and fires. The next is difficult terrain. There's going to be areas of difficult terrain. Movement speed is cut down in half. We also have extreme cold conditions. Players are going to roll a DC 10 Constitution save. It lowers down to DC 5 if you're in a shelter or in a cave out of the wind conditions. You're going to have to do this each hour, gain 1 level of exhaustion. Now, there's some ways around this. Creatures that have a resistance to cold roll advantage on that. Creatures with immunity to cold automatically succeed the saving throw. Now, if you're wearing the cold weather clothes, remember the fur coat. You can pick those up in Kresk, those fur coats. You automatically succeed. You don't need to roll the saving throw. Now, if you're doing a short or long rest with a fur blanket in a shelter or with a fire, that also automatically succeeds. However, if you don't have those warm clothes, or if you don't cold weather warm clothes like that fur coat, or you're not immune to cold, you're going to be rolling on that Constitution saving throw, otherwise suffering exhaustion, which is not good. High altitude. There are some locations with some high altitude. When you're at high altitude, each hour a creature spends traveling at high altitude counts as 2 hours because of the lack of oxygen, and your strength checks and saves at high altitude are at disadvantage. You're running low on oxygen. All that physical exertion, you're going to be rolling disadvantage on that. We also have slippery ice. Slippery ice is a difficult terrain, but in addition, the first time you step into a slippery ice condition, there's some slippery ice and cliffs in here. You're going to have to roll a DC 10 dexterity acrobatics check. If you fail that, you're going to fall prone or fall down a cliff. We'll talk about that here quickly. Last of the conditions is strong wind. A strong wind imposes disadvantage on range, weapon attacks, and perception checks on hearing. So the difference between strong wind and blizzard is blizzard also is perception sight checks. Strong wind is only perception hearing checks. It will extinguish torches and fires 50% of the time. Now, one big change up I made in this is falling, and in traditional D&D rules, you take bludgeoning damage 1d6 for every 10 feet that you fall. And there is so many places to fall here with all these conditions. I changed it up a little bit, made it a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more fun. So if a player falls, and they slip and fall, it's on the edge of a cliff or on the bridge or somewhere, the first thing they're going to do is going to roll an acrobatics check to see what happens. Now, on a 1, if they roll a 1 on their acrobatics check, a natural 1, they're going to fall to the bottom and suffer the damage as per normal rules. 1d6 for every 10 feet worth of falling. If they roll lower than a 15, a 2 through a 14, they're going to slide down that cliff or fall down that cliff, but they manage to hang on, and they're going to suffer from the fall conditions table. I got a special table in here I'm going to show you right now, and they'll need to be rescued. So you imagine they slip and fall, they're hanging onto the edge of the cliff, they're going to suffer something, but they didn't fall to the bottom of the ravine or the gorge or the cliff or whatever. Now, if they roll on that dexterity check 15 or higher on that acrobatics checks, it's a close call. They slipped, they fell, they managed to re-get their footing. They could have gone down, but they didn't. Let's take a look at that fall conditions table. I'm going to bring that up here. This is pretty fun. Let me show you. We'll do the rolls on here. I'm going to turn off the rolls so you can see them. So 1 through 5, it's 1d4 damage. 6 through 9, 1d6. 10 through 12, 3d6. 13, 15, you lose a random item. That's not good. 16, 17, sprain an ankle, 50% movement until the next long rest. if you sprain your wrist, actually I changed this. I'm going to change this again. It's actually disadvantage on dexterity checks. Disadvantage, I changed it. On dexterity. You're watching me fix this on the fly. Is that amazing? Dex checks and saves. And then if you roll a 20, you're going to suffer 1 level of exhaustion. So let's go ahead and update it. We're going to go ahead and roll through these just for fun to see them all, show you how it works here. So you're going to roll this. Again, you're going to roll on this table if the player falls and on their dexterity acrobatic check, they roll a 2 through a 14. Okay, the person falls or hang out on the edge of the cliff, and they're going to suffer 1d4 worth of damage. There we go. Okay, the player rolls at 2 through 14. What happens? Player rolls 1d6 worth of damage. There they go. They just took 5 bludgeoning damage. Let's do it again here. Oh, here we go again. They take 3d6 worth of damage. Here we go. We rolled an 18 through 19. They rolled a 19. They sprang their wrist. Disadvantage on dex checks and saving throws until the next long rest or healing. Next one we have here is the sprang ankle. 50% movement until the next long rest or healing. Roll 1. You lose 1 random item. That kind of blows. And the last one, but not least, is suffering 1 level of exhaustion. In every one of these conditions, you've fallen on the cliff, but you've managed to grab something and you're holding yourself. Someone's going to have to rescue you. You're going to have to figure a way to pull yourself up. Maybe DC 15 strength check to pull yourself up, or someone's going to have to rescue you. But this is what happens when you fall. Instead of just rolling the traditional XD6 worth of damage, you're only going to do the traditional D&D damage if you roll a 1, natural 1 on your dexterity acrobatics checks to find out what the condition is of your fall. I hope you like this. I think this is way, way better than the traditional just take the XD6 worth of damage. All right, so we know the extreme conditions. We know what happens when you fall. Let's jump into our first scene here. I got something so cool. I was been playing with this before I did this video. I got to show you. It's been really cool. Can't wait to show you that. All right, so here we go here. We're at the stone bridge. The first thing we come up is to the West Gatehouse, and that's right here. So we've got the gates of Tsolenka down here. This is the gates of Tsolenka. You know, I'll just throw a character in here. I got a fake character. I've got Bob the Adventurer. There's Bob the Adventurer. So Bob the Adventurer, he's moving up from the gates of Tsolenka. Got some trees there, and we come up to the gates here. The path is covered in a blanket of snow. Before you stands a pair of gatehouses that flank the entrance to the stone bridge right here. Here's the gatehouse. Howling winds going across the bridge. Environmental conditions right here is extreme cold. What does that mean again? That means, as we said before, extreme cold. Players are going to have to roll that DC 10 Constitution save or suffer 1 level exhaustion. That's the first thing I would have the players do as they enter this part of the map. Things are getting colder. You're getting to a higher altitude. Snow's coming down. You can hear that wind. Can you hear the wind blowing in there? All right, a couple of things to note here. On the other side of the trees is that secret path to Berez. Now, the players aren't going to know this unless, under 2 conditions. Munster, the caretaker of the guard tower, that's the mongrel folk that's dressed as the plague doctor at the guard tower. He's also the servant of Lamilla. If he tells the player that he's been using, because, you know, remember, Munster doesn't know the password to get through the gates of Tsolenka. So he never goes through the gates. The only way for him to leave is to go down this path. So he goes down this very, very steep path, takes him straight down. It goes along the edge of the cliff, straight down to the Luna River, that ends out into the swamps of Berez and through Berez, and then eventually to Vallaki. So remember, he's reporting back to Lamilla on what's going on with Baba Lysaga and the swamps and Berez, as well as the Vallaki. So he goes through the swamps of Berez as frequently. In fact, he might be a character the players may run into in the swamps of Berez. But he goes down. Here's the path. So the players will know about the path if Munster tells them. Another way the players would figure it out is if they did a survival check, DC 15, they would recognize that there's some path here on the other side of these trees. Now, in both of the gatehouses here, they're just dilapidated. There's nothing in here, just some broken containers, nothing of importance. However, both of these gatehouses can protect you from that extreme cold and lower that DC down to 5. It's a good place to hold up, rest in here, get out of the wind, get out of the cold, get in there, maybe take some of the kindling. You know, you've got some dilapidated, broken furniture, some old broken barrels and stuff. Maybe get a fire going there and get warm. So there we have the West Gatehouses. Now let's jump into the bridge here. We're going to talk about the bridge. This is awesome. I really love this. There's two things going on with this bridge here. First of all, out on the bridge, the conditions change. We've picked up not only extreme cold, but you're picking up strong wind. And remember the conditions, environmental conditions, strong wind. Strong wind means you're going to have disadvantage on ranged weapon attacks and perception checks that rely on hearing. So strong wind out there, that's going to affect what's coming up next, which we're going to show you here in a second. But first of all, you're going to notice here, I'm using Monk's active tile triggers here in Foundry. If not, I've marked it on the map for you guys using the PDF or playing on Roll20. These Monk active tile triggers, what's going to happen is a weak bridge. Let's talk about this. You can see the areas right here. They're invisible right now to the players. Players with a passive 15 of greater than 15 will recognize that the bridge looks a little unsafe. This is going to trigger, if a player has a passive perception of 15 or higher, it's going to trigger a perception roll to determine what exact areas are dangerous to walk in. Okay, so what I wanted to do here is use that passive profession, not for them to notice what actual tiles and areas are damaged, but to know that something's wrong, encouraging them to take that perception check to see what's going on. And you can see these tiles here are dangerous. Now the tiles on the map here, about a 20 to 50% that they will crumble under the player. Now you can go ahead and roll a 1d100, but I'm using Monk's active tiles. If you're using those, it does everything automatically. And let me show you the tiles first, how they work. I got a tile here, I've opened it up, I've got the triggers on here, and the triggers are going to do these things: stop movement, pause the game, chat message, strong bridge has collapsed, and it's going to show this tile. Now you can set the percentages of the trigger in here. I have some of them set to 20, this one's set to 20%. This one here is set to 50%. So you can figure these out. You know, you can change the percentages of it. But what really happens is here, you got your players, they're crossing the bridge. Let's go ahead and do this and see if I trigger one of these. So we're walking across it. Whoa, I just fell off the bridge. That's not good. And nope, I haven't triggered it, haven't triggered it, haven't triggered it, haven't triggered it. Look at, oh, no. Look at, see how he's walking through and he's totally safe. Oh, he just triggered one. So what happens here is when you trigger one, this message pops up. The stone bridge is broken away beneath the player character. Manage to grab hold of the edge, but for how long? So let's take a look at the rules here. So what happens when the stone bridge gives way, right, underneath the player? Now there's two ways you can do it. You can use Monk active trigger. You can roll a percentage dice to figure out if they fall. It's up to you on how you want to run it. I am using active triggers. As soon as this happens, the player is going to roll an athletics check at this point. They've fallen and they've grabbed onto the rocks. Now on the athletics check, it's a 1d20 here that you're going to roll. And we'll just roll one here to see what goes on with our player that's fallen. Okay, / 1d20, there we go. He rolled a 16. So greater than a 16, they've pulled themselves up. So this player has pulled himself up. You can unpause and make game and continue. You'll notice this tile is filled in now at like water, like the rocks have fallen down below. Now on a 1, if you roll a 1 on your athletics check, this player is going to fall to the water down below and probably die. It's a 500-foot drop. So you've got a 5% chance that things go sideways here. Let's bring him back. He didn't die yet. Come on, Bob. There you go, Bob. If you roll a 2, you spring a risk. You can get disadvantage. This should be disadvantage. I don't know why I say -1. Let me fix that for you. Disadvantage. Fixing it on the fly. Look at me go. Disadvantage on dexterity checks and attack rolls until the next long rest. That's on a 2. So you're still hanging there, but you've sprained your wrist. If you roll a 3 or 4, a random item that you own falls 500 feet below into the water. And on a 5 through 14, you're still hanging there, but you're going to suffer 1d4 worth of damage. You're hanging on. Imagine you're just straining, you're hanging on. You're not taking a lot of damage, but that thing's going to add up. So what you're going to do as soon as this player falls, right, they're hanging on, you're going to roll initiative for everybody. Everybody's going to roll initiative at this point. When it gets to the player that's hanging on's turn, they're going to roll that athletics check. You know, it's going to be either they're going to fall on a 1, number 2, they're going to spring a risk and have disadvantage on dexterity or attack rolls. You know, they've caught themselves. Imagine, oh, you know, you've caught yourself, you're hanging there. you're either going to catch yourself and one of your random items is going to drop 500 feet down below. Maybe your sword or something falls. Gone. And if you roll a 5 through 14, you're going to grab on and you're like, oh, I sprained my wrist. You're going to suffer 1d4 damage on that particular turn. 15 plus, you pull yourself up. You're going to go through this every time you're going to do your turn. If you haven't pulled yourself up, or if one of the other players haven't helped pull you up, you're going to be rolling on this table here. Now, this brings me to the cool part, my favorite part of this whole thing, of the stone bridge, and that is the rock encounter. Oh, I got the rock here, colored her up a little bit. It's a female, you'll find out why. Made her blue to kind of fit in with the motif here, and I'm using Monk's active tile trigger. I'm just so giddy over what I just did with this. I want to show you this first. Okay, your players are out here. I'm just going to show you how this works. Players are out here on the bridge. Rock's over here. And what you're going to do is as a DM, you're going to double click in this. You got to make sure your rock token is in this big tile over here. And you're just going to double click on it, and this is what's going to happen. The players are going to love this. So freaking cool. So it plays the sound. There's a little delay. And the delay is the players are like on the bridge, the wind's blowing, all of a sudden they hear this sound of this giant creature, and then through the mist it kind of flies down. And if you've ever seen like an osprey or an eagle hunting for fish and it's got its talons out, I mean, this bird is flying, this thing is huge, it's flying down, it's got its talons out, aiming for one of the people on the bridge. Let's go through how this encounter works. This is just awesome. I love this one. Okay, so what happens is a loud echoing screech is heard over the howling wind, swooping down from the mist. It's the largest bird you've ever seen. Both talons are out as it's approaching at blinding speed. Apparently you are the target. Okay, so what happens is as the players are crossing the bridge, and this is up to you of when you want to run this rock flying in. The rock is this giant. I mean, look how big this bird is compared to poor little Bob there. There's poor little Bob. Look at this bird. Holy bejesus. Okay, you're going to, as a DM, randomly select. Now, I have some suggestions here. The hanging player from the bridge, maybe the biggest character, maybe the character in the nice shiny armor, a character in the middle of the bridge, or randomly select one. The rock is flying in at terrific speeds. It's got its talons out, and it's not here. This is not a combat encounter. It is flying in to grab you, rip you from the bridge, and fly you up to the nest, because guess what's in the nest? There's an egg about to hatch with a baby rock that it's going to feed, and you are the baby rock's dinner. So what happens is the rock swoops down with its talons to do its grapple a PC to take it up to its nest. Now, on a successful grapple, let's take a look at the rock stat block here. I mean, this stat block is just mean. Look at the strength, 28 strength. You gotta be kidding me. That's a +9, 248 hit points. This thing is just a monster. Now, it's going to come in with its talon attack, right? It's a +13 to hit, and it's going to try to grapple, right? It's a DC 19 escape. If it grapples, it's taken off with that person. I mean, that person's gone. Person's going to suffer 46 + 9 slashing damage. It's 23 damage, and it's just grabbed and taken off. So if the grapple success, it plans on feeding it to the baby, as I mentioned. The players can continue to see the rock fly off with the player character kind of grappled in its talons, flying off to the top of the mountain. And they'll notice on the other side of the bridge at the top of the mountain, there's a nest up there. And they'll see the giant rock flying with their fellow player character up to that nest. Now, the player character that has been grappled, okay, if they fail the grapple check, as they're flying up, right, they make a Constitution save DC 10 to determine if the player is conscious or unconscious. I mean, this massive bird has just grabbed you with these huge talons. Imagine these talons. I mean, the claws on this thing must be bigger than my arm. I mean, this thing has just grabbed you, right? And you've probably suffered some significant damage. You're probably a good chance that you're unconscious at this point. If you make your Constitution save DC 10 and you are conscious, you can attempt to break the grapple. Again, that grapple is a DC 19. You can attempt. You got a second attempt to break the grapple before you get to the nest. If you break the grapple before you get to the nest, you're going to fall and land on the cliff next to the nest, and you will be unconscious at that point. Otherwise, you're going to be in the nest. And I'll show you when we get to that map where you will drop, where you will drop. Now, if the roc fails the grapple, the player, it's going to swoop around and make another attack on round 2. So let's talk about this combat encounter here. There's a couple of things that we need to think about. The roc is moving at a surprising speed, and on the first round, the roc has surprise. So the roc is going to make the first attack on the first round. If the players are within 10 feet of the roc, when it makes its attack, they can make a melee weapons attack. They got to be within 10 feet. There's a strong win condition, remember, so range attacks are going to be at disadvantage. The encounter lasts only one round because the roc is just doing a flyby. It's swooping in, trying to grab something. Now, if the grapple fails, as I mentioned, the roc will fly around and make another pass. Roc does not gain surprise on the additional attempts, only the first attempt. On the next attempts, it has an initiative of 11, which falls right in the middle of the initiative count on average. The roc starts at a distance on the next round, so the roc will be out here on the next round. In fact, you could actually reload it up if you want to. Just put them over here and just do it again. Round 2 begins. It's just so cool. I just love that. That is just so cool. The roc comes in again. That'd be round 2. Does not have surprise, initiative of 11. Now, remember, the roc starts at a distance. So depending on where you are in the initiative order, if you're first, right, in that initiative order, and the roc's in the middle, you're going to be making a range attack, right? Because the roc's flying in at this point. The roc moves and makes the talon grapple and then flies off again. If it misses, it's going to fly around and make another round. Roc will continue to fly around if any creature's on the bridge. Roc will only target creatures on the bridge. If a creature's not on the bridge, or if one of these gatehouses, the roc will not target you. So as soon as they get off the bridge, the roc stops targeting them. You can do the flyby here by just grabbing out of the roc here and just fly him on, drag him to the other side of the map, and there he goes. Flies off for the player. In fact, you could grab the player. Let's try it. Bob. Sorry, Bob. Roc got you this turn. You just highlight both of them and just go like this. Well, there you go. And this is what I guess the other one didn't fly off. Yeah, let's grab Bob. Bob, why didn't you fly off? Oh, Bob triggered one of the, Bob's triggering Bob's triggering the fall thing. There we go. There goes Bob. He flies off with the roc. I forgot he's triggering, we got game pause and locking player characters. So we've got both of those things. We've got the falling here on the bridge, on the stone bridge, where the players potentially fall if they hit one of these tiles. And then we've got the roc swooping in, grabbing the player, taking them up to the nest. We'll talk about that nest here shortly and show you how that works. Okay, now we're on the other side of the bridge. We're on the eastern side. It's the northern part of the map, or the eastern side of the bridge if we're looking at the map. And we got the Eastern Gatehouse. Now, the Eastern Gatehouse looks like it's fallen into disrepair. Their path leads along the steep cliffs and rises above you. That's this path here that heads over to the high pass area. And barely noticeable if you look up the cliff from here. You can see that nest up there. Now, in the right gatehouse, there's nothing in here. The right gatehouse contains just a barrel, some crates. There's nothing really in here. But in the left gatehouse over here, there's some bones. And as soon as you step in here, into these bones, what's going to happen is you're going to see this knight here. Here's this knight. A spirit of a knight appears, and this is what you hear. Watch.
Sir Knight of the world's oldest order, Sir Knight of the army of God, you have crossed the strange mystical portal. The ground floor of truth you have trod. You have entered the Sanctum Sanctorium, which leads to the temple above, where you come as a stone and a god chosen one in the kingdom of friendship and love.
And then the spirit disappears. Let's talk about what this is right here. This is one of the spirits of the knights from the time of the Great War guarding the stone bridge. And he appears, and the poem that he's reading is Worthy the Name of Sir Knight by Ella Wheeler Wilcox, 1850 to 1919. And I thought this poem was perfect, because if you look at the words of the poem of what he's saying, The knight is talking about you've crossed a mystical border, and that's what you're doing. You've crossed a mystical border into Barovia. You're on the ground floor of truth. You're learning what's really going on here. And now you've entered this realm, this sanctum of sanctorium, which leads to this temple above. You're on the way to the Amber Temple. And you've come as a stone and the God's chosen one. You were chosen to obviously get rid of the evilness here in Barovia, in the kingdom of friendship and love. So remember, Argynvost and the knights, the shield maidens, the fae, they were all on the side of good. And so this spirit has recognized you passing the stone bridge and is kneeling before you, knowing that your players are the chosen ones going to the Amber Temple, hoping to rid the realm of this evil of Strahd and of the darkness. So this is this slight role-playing moment, slight reprieve to let you know you're on the right course. You're going to the temple. You're getting the nod from the spirits of the Order of the Silver Dragon. Things are as it should be. So I put that in there. I thought it was pretty cool. It's a cool poem, I think, as well. Okay, let's talk about the cliffs over here and the conditions. Okay, you're on the other side, and going up the cliffs right here, these cliffs right here, right on the other side, leads up to the nest. Now, the cliff can be climbed. It's a dexterity 10 per 10 feet without a rope and pitons. A player character must lead from here to here. Where's Bob? What happened to Bob? Oh, he's over here. Let's bring Bob over here and I'll show you. So Bob's out here and Bob's with Mary. Let's bring Mary. There's Mary. There's Bob. Mary's really good. She's going to climb. So every 10 feet. Now there's a ledge up here, 40 feet up. Okay, at 40 feet. Every 10 feet, she's going to lead the climb. She has to roll that dexterity save. Now this is extreme cold, strong wind, and slippery ice. So the first time she's going to make her first ascent, the first 10 feet, she's going to have to roll that dexterity save, make sure she doesn't slip and fall. If she doesn't slip and fall, she'll continue. Dex checks DC 10. Once she gets up here, makes that 40-foot ascent, she's putting the piton in all the way, she's got her rope down here. All the other players can come up without having to make that dex check. But the person that's going to be good at climbing, you want them up there first. Now, when you get up to 40 feet up here, you're going to notice that the cliffs go straight up from here. And there's a cave here. There's a small little cave entrance here that leads into the mountain and it exits at the top. So when you go into the cave entrance, that's going to take you out at the top of the nest. And we're going to bring up the nest right here. Here's the Roc Nest. There we go. There's a big egg up there in the Roc Nest. I'm going to bring Bob and Mary. They've just come out of the cave here, and they're at the top of the mountain. They've climbed through the cave. They got up to the ledge, got into the cave. They've climbed up in the cave up to the top of the mountain. They've come out of this cave entrance, and it is blowing like stink up here. I mean, it's not good conditions up here and up at the Roc Nest, okay? So you're at the top of the nest. The cave emerges onto a windy cliff. The altitude begins to take its toll on you. Your breaths are shallow and you tire more quickly. The icy cliff at the mouth of the cave leads slightly higher to a giant nest at the top of the mountain. And that should be cave and not cave. Boy, I need to work on my spelling, don't I? Anyway, so you're out here, and here's the conditions. It's extreme cold. Blizzard conditions outside the cave. Slippery ice as soon as you step out on the top of the cliff. Difficult terrain, high altitude. You've got all of these conditions working against you. You got to be careful. Now let's talk about something here. You're going to see some lines on the map. I'm going to show you these lines. There's a blue line here. There's a red line. And if you look at it from the walling, the blue line is a wall. If you go down below the wall, you fall. The red line, well, down there is death. So the blue line represents a steep drop, not a step drop. Holy bejesus. A steep drop. Any player character crossing that, slipping, falls, or knocked over the blue line rolls on the fall condition. So if your player character accidentally, you're coming out here trying to make the difficult terrain, and you happen to go below this, boom, you're not going to be able to see it above it. And as long as you're between the blue and the red lines, you're going to roll on those fall conditions. Find out what's happened to you. Let's go ahead and roll. Find out what's happened to Mary. Mary's there. She slipped and fell. Mary loses one random item. Now, she slipped and falls. She's here hanging on. As long as you're between the blue and the red line, you are hanging on, and players need to rescue you. So that's what's going on here. If you slip and go down below the red line, game over, you're dead. I mean, that just drops hundreds and hundreds of feet. That's death. So what happens if you get blown over, you slip and fall, whatever happens, you get a little reprieve here in this blue to red area, okay, along here. That's what this area is for. It's marked with a blue line, and it's actual walls here in Foundry. You notice in the walls, you can't see. You've lost vision above the cliff. You can still see down below. Once you get above it, you can still see down. But if you're down here, so technically speaking, if Bob had fallen off the edge, he can't see Mary, but Mary can see Bob, but Bob can't see Mary. That's what's happening here. So you're down here. You've suffered that fall condition up there. Now let's talk about getting up to the nest. You get up to the nest, and the nest you can get up to, when you get on the top of the nest, it rises 15 feet up. So the brim of that nest is about 15 feet. It's made out of logs and timber. And when you get up to the 15 feet area, okay, I might make sure that she's invisible. There she goes. Okay, when you get up to the net, you'll see this big egg in here. Now remember we talked about the player being grappled by the bird. If the player survives, makes the dexterity check, succeeds it, and breaks the grapple and falls, that player character is going to fall right in this area, anywhere along this cliff. I would put him or her over here somewhere. When they land, that player is unconscious. Okay, so the player character that succeeded in breaking the grapple is lying unconscious in the snow on the cliff somewhere. So they're unconscious until your party gets to them. They're just laying there in the snow. They've taken some fall damage, obviously. They've rolled on that fall table, breaking the grapple. They're probably pretty torn up from that talon biting into them. Now, if they've fallen or they've been brought to the nest, they're in the nest unconscious. And this is what happens in the nest. You can see the egg there. By the way, the baby roc is invisible right now. I have it marked invisible. There it is, visible. Right now it's invisible. The players are going to see this as soon as the first player gets up to the edge of this nest and sees the egg and may see the other player character that's up there, you're going to roll a 1d4. You're going to say, roll initiative. Everybody's going to roll initiative. So the first player gets up there, they see that egg, you're going to have them roll initiative. What you're going to do is you're going to roll a 1d4 to determine how many rounds that egg hatches. So the players are going to get in there. The egg hasn't hatched, but you're going to secretly, I would roll this in secret. This is not a public roll. You're going to do this as a private GM roll. You're going to roll that there. Private roll 2. In 2 rounds, that egg's going to hatch. And what happens when that egg hatches? Well, this is what happens. That baby is going to come out of that egg, and that baby is hungry. Now, the baby roc will attack any player character in the nest. It doesn't know how to fly. It can only move 20 feet. It's in the nest. You can see it's pretty big. That's a baby roc. And it's going to be munching on you guys because it's hungry. Let's look at the baby roc stats. It's 100. It's not gargantuan. I don't know why I have it gargantuan. I gotta change that. I don't know why it's gargantuan. Baby roc is large. It's 18 strength, 18 dex, 18 constitution. It's not nearly as powerful as mama bird. It has a beak attack. It does 2d8 plus 4 damage. It's plus 4 to hit. Does a multi-attack with its beak. Baby roc makes 2 attacks with its beak. Excuse me. Baby roc can't leave the nest. It can't fly. It's just going to try to eat any creature in this nest. You're going to be in combat at this point. Now, the baby roc is going to make a yelp on its turn. We just heard it right here. What's going to happen at this point is the baby roc is calling mommy, big mommy roc, right? And so you're going to do another secret roll, 1d4, and that's going to determine how many turns mommy roc gets there. You're going to roll that second 1d4, determine how many rounds mommy roc comes. And when mommy roc comes, you're going to hear... And now mommy roc's in there, and it's going to get nasty. It's going to get nasty quick. So you got 1d4 rounds before the baby roc hatches. When the baby roc hatches, it squawks. You got another 1d4 rounds before mama roc shows up. Now, something about the rock encounter to remember is if the players get out of the nest, all the players get out of the nest, the encounter ends. Mama Roc, remember, think about the verisimilitude in Mama Roc playing this. She's there to protect and feed her young, right? And if you guys have escaped and you guys have been attacking escape, she's going to stay there with the baby until she knows that baby's been protected. This is her only baby, and I'm sure Rocs don't have babies that often. So she's going to stay in the nest with the baby to protect the baby. So the combat encounter is going to be in the nest. Perhaps the mommy Roc gets up on the edge of the nest, attacks you until you kind of get out of range, while it's up on the edge of the nest. But it's not going to follow you down the cliff to the cave. Once you guys are in the cave, no matter what, once you get in the cave, you're safe. Mommy Roc, once you're out of sight and you're in the cave, Mommy Roc is going to be back taking care of her baby. So that's the Roc Nest, rescuing the player up in the Roc Nest. Now let's move on to the High Pass. Remember when you were at the stone bridge here, if you head off in this direction here at the stone bridge, that's going to take you to the High Pass. And the players are going to start the High Pass. We're going to start them over here. Okay, here they are. They're over at the High Pass over here. Now let's talk a little bit about the High Pass. Okay. The High Pass, a snow path runs along the ridge, overlooking the snow-covered valley below. On your left is a sheer rock cliff that rises pretty straight up, hundreds of feet up. Small ledges, barely enough to stand on. So it's getting steeper and steeper here. And on your right, it drops off sharply. In some areas, it kind of slopes down sharply. Some areas, it just kind of drops off. Environmental conditions here is extreme cold, strong wind, and high altitude. The path is heading higher. So you're facing these three environmental conditions. If you have a nature or survival check, DC 12, you'll recognize the area is also high risk for avalanches. Now, this is another combat encounter that can lead to an avalanche. So let's talk about that here. So the players are coming over here. Here we go. We got our players going around, trying to make their way through. And up on here is we have another creature. Where is he hiding? There he is. Now, this is Sangzor. And this thing is a beast. 126 hit points, 24 strength. Another big, really, really strong. Let's talk about this creature for a bit up here in the High Pass. Now, the players may have learned a little bit about him from Darovich. Remember, Darovich is the hunter in Kresk, and one of his rewards is telling you about some of the big creatures and stuff throughout Barovia. So what he may have shared with you may already know is that this Sangzor inhabits the Gakas Mountains. It's a large goat-like beast. Its hide is strong and resists ordinary weapon damage. That's a big hint right there. It's immune to the cold from living in such a place. Is known to hide and charge its prey with rams and tusks. So that's the information that Darovich can give you, so you're prepared for this beast. Now let's talk about the encounter here. It's going to be stealth. It's going to be up here, and it's going to be on this. You're going to see this right here. It's hiding up here. You can. The players can't see it, even if I made him visible. He's hiding there. So players are going to come here. They see these big rocks. They're going to go, oh, we're going to pass underneath here. And this thing is going to jump down, and it's going to charge him. You're going to go into combat encounter. You're going to roll your initiative. A couple of things about playing Sangzor. Its stealth remains motionless on top of the rock, and it's ready to charge a creature. It'll charge the largest creature or the creature that poses the greatest physical threat. So imagine you're Sangzor. Which creature, it's going to feel threatened. So this is an attack not like Roc. Roc was looking for food. This attack is an attack to take out the beast that Sangzor feels is the most threatening. It's going to be either the biggest player or the most physically imposing player. Is going to charge. It's going to make a charge attack. Okay, now let's talk about its attack features here. It has two attacks. It has a ram attack and it has a gore attack. The ram attack, it's going to need some distance to make that ram attack, and it has a charge. So if it charges 20 foot, if it has at least 20 feet, it's going to charge. It's going to add another 2d6 damage. Right now, the attack does... it does 2d6 plus 7 bludgeoning in here. is the ram attack, and then if it does the charge, it's going to add, you got a DC saving throw, otherwise you get down, it adds another 2d6 plus 7. So it can do 2 damages and also knock you prone. You're going to have to do a saving strength DC at 13. Now in melee range, it's going to do this gore attack, and the gore attack does 3d8 plus 7 piercing. You can see this creature, and let's just take a look really quickly at it here. This creature has both these tusks to gore you, and it has the horns to ram you. So it's either going to ram and do the charge, or in melee range, it's going to try to gore you with the tusks. It's sure-footed, so it can go. It has advantage on strength and dexterity saving throws made against effects that would knock it prone, and it can just run up this cliff. Imagine like a mountain goat, so it can go up the sheer cliff without any problem. One of the things during this combat encounter to keep in mind of is that if it takes 50%, falls below 50% of its hit points, it's going to try to escape up the mountain. It can move up with ease. Trying to follow this thing up the mountain is going to be very, very, very difficult. Now, avalanche time. Every spell that deals fire, lightning, force, thunder, or bludgeoning damage, or any spell that disrupts the environment, could lead to an avalanche. As soon as that spell is going to be cast, you're going to roll a 1d10. If the die results are below or equal to the spell level, an avalanche occurs. So if you roll below the spell level, equal to or below the spell level, I rolled a 1, an avalanche occurs. Okay, we're going to show you the avalanche now here in a second. If you defeated Sangzor, or if it retreats, and an avalanche did not happen, you can continue your way around the edge of this cliff here, right, on your way to the Amber Temple. And you're now on your way to the Amber Temple. Let me just show you that here. So the conclusion is you'd be on the way to Amber Temple. Amber Temple's 4 hours along the ridge. Remember, it's still extreme cold, strong wind, high altitude. So you're moving along that ridge for another 4 hours. You want to probably make those dice. Maybe some theater of the mind as they're going through there, trying to figure out what they're doing. You're not going to let them know it's going to be 4 more hours. They're just going to have to be traveling because they're on their way to the Amber Temple. They don't know if it's 8 hours, 2 days, 4 hours, or an hour. It's going to be 4 more hours of traveling before they get to the Amber Temple. Let's jump into the avalanche mini game. You've triggered an avalanche through one of your spells, and this is what happens. So we got a mini game here. This is a big map here, and this is the way the avalanche mini game goes. And I really like this. This is kind of a fun little mini game. All of a sudden, you hear this thundering sound, draws your attention. The wall of snow comes barreling down from the mountains towards you. Now, the players are going to be swept down the mountain by the avalanche. Here are the rules. The players have a run downhill speed of 100 feet. The dash action doubles that to 200 feet. The players have the ability of doing a second wind bonus. A PC may run another 100 feet as a bonus action. The PC must also make a Constitution save of DC 10 or suffer 1 level of exhaustion. So you can try to do a second wind, but if you do, you're going to suffer 1 level of exhaustion. The avalanche is going to last for 4 to 7 rounds. That's a 1d4. Let me just put this in here so I can roll it. Put the roll command in here, make it easier. 4 to 7 rounds. The avalanche moves at the end of the round. So here we go. What's going to happen is the player's also going to face an avalanche condition. So we're going to run this right now in Foundry. I'm going to show you how to do this. Okay. The first thing is on the player's turn, player can move 100 feet. Now, by the way, just so you know, these squares represent 50 feet. For this avalanche game, the squares represent 50 feet. Players can move 100 feet per turn. So we're just going to pretend Bob is first, Mary's second, Avalanche comes in. That's going to be the initiative order because Avalanche always runs last. The first thing on Bob's turn here, and here's Bob. We're going to give Bob Bob's got strength of 17. Let's see what Mary's stats look like. She looks the same. We're going to lower her strength. We're going to give her good dexterity though. So we're going to make her 14, but we're going to give her 18 dexterity. There we go. Okay, and we're going to give them both, I don't know, let's say 100 hit points each. As we do this down the mountain. These are just test characters to show you running the avalanche game. Bob's up first. You're going to start the characters at the edge of the map. First thing you're going to do is determine the avalanche condition for the player. So we got a roll table here. We're going to bring that up here. And Bob has to roll. Every player is going to roll on the avalanche condition. Let's check this out. Let's clear, make sure our thing is cleared up so we can run this. We're going to roll on the avalanche condition. What happens? Ooh, you dropped something. Lost a random item. That sucks. So the DM's going to select a random item. It could be your dagger, it could be your sword, it could be a magic item, it could be some gold. Okay, but you still get to run. So Bob's going to he's going to start hauling butt, and he's going to start running. And he's going to use his dash action. So here he goes. There's 50 feet, there's 100 feet, there's 150, there's 200 feet. That's the end of Bob's turn. He's not going to use his second wind and risk getting exhaustion at this point. All right, it's Mary's turn. Mary's going to roll on the avalanche condition table. Find out what's going on with Mary. Mary, just run. She made it. She's going to run 200 feet. She's great. Okay, now it is the avalanche. The avalanche moves 100 to 250 feet. We roll 1d4 times 50 plus 50. Let's take it out. So how fast does the avalanche move? Holy crap. It rolls 250 feet. So what I'm going to do here to know where it runs, so there's 50, 100, 100, and 150. Sorry, there's 50, 100, 150, 200, 250. It has, and I'm just going to use this line so I can show. I'm going to draw a line here. This is where the avalanche is. Now let's read down here. If a player finishes their turn in the avalanche, they suffer 48 bludgeoning damage on restraint. If the avalanche catches the player at the end of the round, which it just did, on the next round the players roll disadvantage on any avalanche conditions check. So the avalanche is caught up to them. We're going into the next round. They're going to get disadvantage because it's caught up to them. So now it's Bob's turn here. Well, how many rounds do we have for this? Let's figure out. 7. Holy crap. That was round 1. This avalanche is going to be rolling down for 7 turns. Let's see if we can survive this thing. Holy bejesus, this is kind of exciting. Okay, it's Bob's turn. Bob, you got to make it for us, buddy. This is brutal, Bob. What's going on with you? Let's roll your condition. Oh, debris, rocks, trees, and other hazards are in the way. He needs to roll an athletic or an acrobatics check, DC 10, or his movement is restricted by 50%. Let me see. He is better at athletics. He's going to do an athletics check, but at disadvantage, remember, because the thing caught up with him. He's got to roll better than a DC 10. Come on. Oh, yes, he makes it. Bob is hauling butt 200 feet. Okay, 1, 2, there he is, 200 feet. He's run. What about Mary? Come on, Mary. You got to get out of this thing. Oh, she just gets to run. She's going to run, and you know what she's going to do? She's going to do a Constitution save or suffer 1 level of exhaustion. She wants to run another 100 feet. She's going to take the risk. She's going to do a Constitution save. Everything's disadvantaged. Oh, she makes it. Ooh. She runs another 100 feet without suffering exhaustion. Okay, now it's up to the avalanche. How far does the avalanche come? Oh my God, another 250 feet. Okay, there's 50, 100, 150, 200, 250 feet. Oh, Bob, Bob, things aren't going so well for you, Bob. You're now in the avalanche. Mary's out of it, but Bob's in it. Ooh, okay, Bob, it's your turn again. We're going to be rolling a condition for you, Bob. See if you can make it through here. Avalanche condition. Let's go, Bob. Okay, run. Run like hell, Bob. No problems here. There's 50, 100, 150, 200. Bob is going to risk, he gets a Constitution save for another 100 feet. Just don't roll. You got to make it. Oh, he makes it. So he's going to go for another 100 feet. Mary, what's up with Mary? Mary, you got any problems? Nope, she just runs. There's 100, 200. Let's roll for this avalanche. This avalanche is just 200 feet. There's 100, there's 200. So it's just barreling right behind him. Here's the avalanche right here. So they're not going to be rolling disadvantage out of here, but they're going to be their turn. Avalanche condition. Let's see what happens. Whiteout perception check, DC 10, Bob. Bob's got to roll a perception check, DC 10. Otherwise, he's going to be... Rolls a 3. Oh, my gosh, Bob. Things suck for you. He only gets to move 50%, including his dash action. So that means he moves 50, 50. That's it. That's as much as he can move at this point. Bob is going to risk again a Constitution save because try to make it another 50 feet. Oh, he does. He makes it 50 feet without suffering exhaustion. So there he is. Bob's moved only 150 feet. Mary, what's up with Mary? Mary, debris, trees, rocks, hazards in the way. She's got to make an athletics or an acrobatics check. She's better at acrobatics. Let's make that check for her. 11, and it was a DC 10. She makes that. She gets to move her 200 feet. That's what she's going to do. There's 100. There's 200. She's still ahead of Bob. All right. Let's check this out. 200 feet again. 100, 200. Bob is just having a crap day, isn't he? Bob is in the Avalanche has caught up to Bob again. Poor Bob. Okay, Bob, let's do it. Let's see if you can do it, Bob. Run, Bob, run. Oh, he has to roll that he has to roll his oh, no, he didn't get anything. So he gets to run. If he had one, he had to roll disadvantage. He is running his butt off at this point. There's 100. There is 200. Mary. Whiteout condition. Unable to see. She needs to roll a perception check. Come on, Mary. Can you do it, Mary? Come on. I don't want Mary to lose this. I like Mary better than Bob. Don't tell Bob that. Oh, she fails. 50% movement. Oh, sorry, Mary. There's your 50, and there's your other 50. You're kind of going to get screwed here. Is she going to risk? I think Mary's going to risk she's going to risk it. She's going to make a Constitution save. If she fails this, she's going to take a level of exhaustion. Oh, DC 10, she barely makes it. So she gets to move another 150 feet. All right, here comes this avalanche again. We've done 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the fifth turn. Only 100 feet. Avalanche is slowing down. They are like breathing a huge sigh of relief. There's 50. There's 100. Avalanche is right here, right now, coming down, barreling on them. We're now going to go to Bob again. Find out what's going on with Bob. Bob has just had a really rough time, hasn't he? Here we go. Here's a roll table, Bob. Run, Bob, run. He's running. 50, 100, 50, 200. There goes Bob. Mary's going to roll on the avalanche conditions table. Oh, she dropped something. She lost her magic wand. Mary's pissed. She just stopped. She's looked around. She's like, I got to run. She's just going to bolt. She's lost her magic wand. Poor Mary. There's 100. There's 200. She's next to Bob. What happens with this avalanche? It's barreling down on him. Only 100 feet. It's really slowed down. It is slowed down at this point. There's what? There's 50, there's 100, so it's slowing down. They're making some good headway on the avalanche. You can see how much it moved, and now it's slowed down. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the last turn. Avalanche condition. Let's see what's going on for Bob here. He's running. He's still just hauling butt. He is not waiting around for this avalanche. 1, 2, 3. There he is. That's 5. I think that's it, right? That's 50, 100, 150, 200. He's taking his dash action. Mary, can she do it? She's going to run too. They both run, and there's no way this avalanche can catch up to them, but we're just going to run it anyway. 200 feet. There's 50, 100, 50, 200. So it started speeding up a little again, but then it just kind of came to a fizzled out. There's 5, 10, 15, 20. There it is right there. And there he is. That was the Avalanche minigame running from the Avalanche. Let's talk about a couple of things. They didn't get caught. They got lucky. They didn't get caught there in the Avalanche. Now, I didn't know the players at this point could have already suffered a level of exhaustion, could have already been having some other issues or problems. We just assumed they weren't, but if they were, this would have ended in disaster. If a player finishes their turn in the Avalanche, they're going to take 48 worth of bludgeoning damage and are restrained. For the rest of the remaining until the avalanche finishes, until it ends, and this time it was 7 rounds, each of their turns, they're moving along with the avalanche. Each of their turns, they're going to roll a strength save DC 15. If they fail, they're going to take another 2d8 worth of damage. When the avalanche ends, the players can make a strength check, DC 15, and break free on their own. PCs with survival, proficiency of survival, roll advantage on that, by the way. Every 5 minutes, the players that are stuck, they failed the DC check. It'll take them 2d10 minutes to climb out of the snow. Every 5 minutes, they are stuck in the snow. They have to make a constitution save or suffer 1 level exhaustion. DC 15 if they're wearing no cold weather clothes. DC 10 if they're wearing cold weather clothes. They're restrained in there. They're trying to dig their way out every 5 minutes. So you're going to roll. Let me put the roll in there. I like to add the rolls in here so that you can just click on the button in there. So let me just do that. Make life easier for me. There we go. So every time, 11 minutes, that means they're going to have to make, if they don't get, they're going to take them 11 minutes to get out. That means they're going to have to make 2 DC checks. If they're wearing no cold weather clothes, they have to DC 15 constitution saves, or they're going to suffer 1 level of exhaustion. DC 10. Players with proficiency in survival lowers that DC by 5. At the conclusion, the players get out of the snow. In the distance, up in the mountain, up the hill, which they've just rolled down to, they can see the Amber Temple up there. It's going to take them an 8-hour hike in heavy snow up there to get to the Amber Temple. They got environmental conditions, blizzard, extreme cold, and difficult terrain. So it's going to take them a long time to climb up there. They're going to be facing some stuff. Players can start to find shelter, maybe make a snow cave, find shelter on rocks. I mean, after this entire venture, the crossing the bridge, perhaps falling on the bridge, the Roc Attack, climbing the cliffs, falling, facing the Sangzor, these players are probably going to be suffering some damages. They may be suffering some levels of exhaustion. I'd be looking for a place to create a snow cave, find some shelter or something to rest up if they got whacked by this avalanche, because it's going to be nasty. Because the next stop is that Amber Temple, and unless they rest outside the Amber Temple or find somewhere to rest, things can get ugly bad. I mean, this entire session, right, going across the bridge, is really about dealing with environmental conditions, dealing with the avalanche, dealing with a couple of monsters, figuring out how to work together as a team, finding shelter, avoiding cold weather, making sure you're prepared. This is all about, I mean, this is kind of, I guess you could call it the Boy Scout adventure, right? Being prepared for the environment. Make sure you have the right equipment, make sure you're working together, avoiding situations, trying to minimize the risk of those environmental conditions and those exhaustion conditions. Well, that's it for Tsolenka Pass, the bridge and everything. The next stop would, of course, be the Amber Temple from here. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did putting it together. I really like this Avalanche minigame. I thought it was kind of exciting. Until next time, this is Parm King signing off, and may all your rolls be critically successful.